TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donations.
Shalom and good evening. This is TV7 Israel News broadcast to you from Jerusalem, and in today's top stories. Israel and the Islamist Hamas terror group are said to be on the cusp of reaching a hostage release deal. U.S. President-elect Donald Trump warns Hamas and Israel to get a hostage release deal done before he enters office. The Iranian-proxy Ansar-Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi Tribe, launches multiple ballistic missiles towards Israel. Israel and the Islamist Hamas terror organization appear to be on the cusp of reaching a deal that would entail the release of hostages in Hamas captivity in a number of stages in exchange for a temporary ceasefire, a partial Israeli withdrawal, and the release of hundreds of Palestinian terror operatives from Israeli jails. According to circulating reports that have been acknowledged by a senior official in the know, a first stage will include a ceasefire of 42 days, during the course of which children, women, and elderly, both living and bodies of murdered hostages, will be returned to Israel in exchange for a partial IDF withdrawal from the Philadelphia corridor between Egypt and the Gaza Strip, as well as the strategic Netzarim corridor, which will allow the Palestinians to transit to the northern part of the terror-ridden enclave. Moreover, Israel will release 30 convicted terrorists for each released civilian hostage and 50 terrorists for every soldier in Hamas captivity. In parallel, Hamas and Israel will also hold negotiations for the second stage of a deal, which will include far-reaching Israeli concessions in exchange for the release of additional hostages. It is important to know that while Israel accepted the deal, the leadership of Hamas in Gaza has not yet given its response as of yet. Therefore, outgoing U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan voiced cautious optimism regarding the deal's imminent implementation.
And we are now at a pivotal point in the negotiations for a hostage deal and ceasefire in Gaza. The president spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu yesterday and just got off the phone with the Emir of Qatar. He'll be speaking soon also with President Sisi of Egypt. We are close to a deal, and it can get done this week. I'm not making a promise or a prediction, but it is there for the taking, and we are going to work to make it happen.
Sullivan continued by stressing his belief as to why a hostage release deal is seemingly imminent.
I think there's a couple of reasons for why this is happening, the biggest one of which is that Israel has achieved its substantial military objectives in Gaza, and Hamas has suffered catastrophic losses, military losses over the course of the conflict. And when you put those two factors together, we believe that the time is ripe to get a deal and to have it close. And our hope is that it will happen here in the near term. Now, I cannot predict you it will. I cannot promise you it will. And, if in 5 days it hasn't happened, I will be the person who is probably least shocked by that. But I think there is a good chance we can close this, and I think because of that good chance, we have to use every ounce of our diplomatic effort to try to get it across the finish line, because that would be good for everyone, and it's also profoundly in the national interest of this country.
It is important to know that in contrast to the statement made by the outgoing National Security Advisor, Jerusalem, Doha, and Cairo, including the Islamist Hamas, understand full well that unless a deal is reached, the incoming Trump administration will adopt contingencies with far-reaching implications to all involved actors. This was once again reiterated by U.S. President-elect Donald Trump, who commented on the emerging hostage deal saying, quote, "They have to get it done. If they don't get it done, there's going to be a lot of trouble out there, a lot of trouble like they have never seen before, and they will get it done." Well, President Trump further mentioned in remarks to the American network Newsmax that he was under the impression that both sides have already agreed to the deal. As mentioned before, the leadership of the Islamist Hamas in the Gaza Strip has not given its response as of yet. In other yet related news, the Iranian-proxy Ansar-Allah, which is dominated by the Houthi Tribe in Yemen, has ratcheted up its daily ballistic missile and UAV fire toward the state of Israel, claiming that it will continue to attack Israel until, quote, the aggression on the Gaza Strip is stopped and the siege is lifted.
The missile force of the Yemeni armed forces carried out a significant military operation, targeting the so-called Ministry of Defense of the Israeli enemy in the occupied city of Jaffa with a hypersonic ballistic missile of the type Palestine II. The missile reached its target with Allah's help, and the interception systems failed to confront it. This operation is the third one within 12 hours. The Yemeni armed forces and the great Yemeni people reiterate that they will not abandon their religious, moral, and humanitarian duties towards the oppressed Palestinian people, regardless of the consequences. And, with Allah's help, they will escalate their military operations against the Israeli enemy until the aggression on the Gaza Strip is stopped and the siege is lifted.
The Houthis have indeed launched 3 consecutive attacks toward Israeli territory. However, in contrast to their claimed success, all of the incoming projectiles have been successfully intercepted. Nevertheless, debris of one of the intercepted ballistic missiles struck a private residence in the community of Mevot Beitar, which is situated in the Judean hills south of Jerusalem.
At 4 this morning, a Houthi missile fell on the rooftop of the house. It got stuck between the tiled rooftop and the inner roof of the bomb shelter. It broke the entire roof. This is all of the story at the moment. It is a piece of roughly 1 meter wide and 4 meters long. With great luck, the serious-sized debris fell on the roof of the bomb shelter. I don't know what would have happened were it to crash into any other part of the rooftop.
Thankfully, no injuries were reported as a result of the scattered debris in the general vicinity of the adjacent communities of Tzur Adasa and Mevot Beitar. However, the uptick in attacks by the Houthis comes despite Israeli aerial strikes against strategic targets in Yemen, which have rendered the ports of both Al-Hudaydah and Ras Isa largely incapacitated, alongside other infrastructure that is utilized by the Houthis for attacks against Israel and freedom of navigation in the strategic strait of Bab el-Mandeb and adjacent waterways. Immediately after the Israeli strike, which was conducted in coordination with the United States, among others, last week, Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz relayed a message to the Iranian proxy in Yemen.
The IDF striking Yemen today is a clear-cut message to the leader of the Houthi terror group, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, and the leaders of the Houthi terror group in Yemen. None will be immune. We will chase and hunt you down, and we will destroy the terror infrastructure that you've erected. The long hand of the State of Israel will reach you wherever you may be. Thousands of Houthis that have just participated in a procession of hatred against the State of Israel have just heard from up close the power of the Israel Air Force aircraft. Hodeidah port is paralyzed, and Rassi's support is ablaze. The message is clear. Whoever harms Israel will be harmed sevenfold.
It is important to highlight that the Houthis also continue to launch attacks against U.S. naval and commercial vessels in the strategic strait of Bab el-Mandeb and adjacent waterways.
The missile and UAVs forces of the Yemeni armed forces, with the help of Allah Almighty, carried out a joint military operation during the past 24 hours targeting the American aircraft carrier USS Harry Truman and a number of its warships in the northern Red Sea region, with a number of cruise missiles and drones, and the engagement with the carrier and its related units lasted 9 hours. And the targeting of the U.S. carrier is the 5th since its arrival to the Red Sea. The operation achieved its goals successfully, thanks to Allah, and forced the aircraft carrier to leave the theater of operations and flee to the far north of the Red Sea.
In contrast to claims of success, the USS Harry Truman and its accompanying strike group intercepted all incoming projectiles, while in tandem, US and UK aircraft conducted dynamic strikes against the Iranian proxy in Yemen.
So on the Houthis, again, really shocked by their disinformation on striking our ships in the region. There have been no attacks on our ships. In terms of your question on strikes, the most recent strikes that Central Command conducted were on January 8th that I read out here at the podium. We, of course, have conducted dynamic strikes, I think, over the maybe last few days, as Houthis have launched or we see them prepare to launch missiles or UAVs at our ships or commercial vessels. We take those actions, those dynamic strikes. I think there were some as recently as yesterday.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News. It is important to highlight that TV7 Israel is a non-profit ministry, with our productions exclusively reliant on monthly donations from our viewers. Therefore, if you're blessed by the content of our programs, I would like to encourage you to donate. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Moreover, I'd like to encourage you as ever, pray for the peace of Jerusalem and salvation of Israel. Jonathan Hassan wishing you a blessed evening, and God willing, we will see you during our next update. Until then, Shalom from Jerusalem.